Hello and welcome to the Stitch Together podcast episode 21. Today is Tuesday the 15th of September 2015 and I apologise in advance if the lighting seems a little unusual. It's been a very hit and miss weather kind of day. It keeps going cloudy and raining and then having bright skies, so I have no idea how the lighting is going to pan out through the course of the podcast. I've done the best I can. Just apologising in advance if it all suddenly goes weird in terms of the colours and stuff. I'd just like to say thank you to everyone for joining me as I sit here on my lovely beige sofa, and welcome anybody who's new to the podcast. Thank you for coming and checking me out. I hope you enjoy yourselves, and if you do enjoy yourself, come over to the Ravelry group, the Stitch Together Podcast and Patterns Ravelry group, and come say hello. It'd be lovely to hear a little bit about you, so it doesn't feel like a one-sided conversation, but it would be lovely to meet you if you enjoy yourself. And if you've been watching the podcast for a bit and you've not come over to the group, please do so. It's a really friendly place and everyone's really chatty and nice. It's not like some of the bigger groups where you get unwieldy threads. You know, some of the bigger groups you can log on like 2-3 times a day and you still have acres and acres of messages to read through. On my group, it's kind of small but perfectly formed, lovely people in a small group who are friendly and supportive. So it's much easier to keep on top of all the messaging and stuff that's going on. So come over and join us. It'd be lovely to hear from you. In the same way, new people, you know, it's nice to hear from people who've been watching for a while but haven't actually said hello yet. So please come and join us, especially as, you know, been going for 12 months now. You know, I'm not going anywhere. Though there haven't been that many podcast episodes, I am still here and I am still recording, holding in there. And on that note, I should tell you who won the giveaway for the 1 year anniversary. Excuse me for the rattling. There is going to be a bit of rustling in today's episode because everything's in plastic bags and I don't really want to take them out because a lot of it's fibre related and it'll just end up all over the place. But this was the prize for the 1 year podiversary, and it is a lace weight yarn. It is Blueface Leicester and it's in the colour Sea Jewels. It's 800 metres, it's 100 grams, and it's from Wharfedale Woolworks, and it's a lovely colour. And thank you to everyone who entered this giveaway. I decided what I wanted to know for the prompt was what you wanted to see more of in the podcast, because I don't necessarily know what's going on in your head and what you like and what you don't like and whether there's anything you want to know more about or what have you. And the overwhelming response has been that you want to see spindling. You actually want to see me spindling. I will try and record it. It's a bit tricky to record spindling because you're using both your hands and you kind of got to get it set up right. The reason I haven't done it before is because I don't think I do it right. I've kind of had to teach myself and figure my own way out because there is not very much out there or there wasn't a lot out there on YouTube when I started support spindling. There are a couple more things that you can see now, a couple more videos that are quite useful, and I will put links to that in the show notes. But there are a couple of videos that I kind of always recommend when people ask about it that I discovered about 6 months after I sort of finally nailed it. And one of the reasons I think I don't do it right is that I do a lot of worsted spinning on my support spindle, and most people say, well, you need to do woolen spinning on a support spindle. That's the only solution. That's the only thing you can do in order to stop your spindle flying around all over the place. I do worsted spinning as well. As it took me a lot longer to work out how to do long draw spinning than it did worsted spinning. So I'll kind of try and do a video at some point in the near-ish future. I don't know when I'll feel up to it or not, but I'll have a go and I'll try and show you why my methods are a little bit hinky But it, you know, I'll show you my spindles. I'll show you how I do it, because a lot of you did ask about it. Anyway, that's by the by. But the winner of the draw, there were 29 posts after my initial post, and the winner drawn was post number 28, and that is Sikuna from Berlin in Germany. So Sikuna, well done, congratulations. Come and send me a PM on Ravelry or email, however you want to do it, with your postal address, and I'll get this lovely skein of yarn out to you in the post. Thank you everyone for entering. So that is first bit of stuff and things out the way. The second bit is the spin along, which started on the 1st of September and finishes on the 30th of September. We're bang on halfway through, and I just like to say, you guys rock. You have done some amazing spinning, and we've got quite a few things in the FO thread already, and it's been really lovely seeing the fibre and the various stages of the spinning and then the final product. And it's been really amazing seeing how supportive everybody is of each other and encouraging, and the chat thread has been great fun. So the prizes are shown in the first post of the chat thread and the FO thread, and the links to those threads are in the show notes. So come and have a look. There's a couple of nice prizes of fibre. So come and, if you are a spinner, you've still got 2 weeks. You only have to do 100 grams, and if you come over and join in, that would be lovely to see what you spin. So I'm sure there'll be some more entries, and I'll show you my project later on in Nose to the Grindstone. So that is it for stuff and things. So moving on to done and dusted. I finished the biggest project ever. Well, not quite the biggest project ever, but it felt like it at the time. I have finished my Novum by Martina Behm in the Wollmeister lace garn in the Copperway CU, as in the which is the chemical symbol from the periodic table for copper, which is rather appropriate, and I think it's a pretty good representation of this colour. See if I can. It's a bit brighter than that. Like I say, the colour's difficult. It doesn't help that it's that's it. That's the colour there. That's the colour. And the Wollmeister lace garn is a 300 gram skein, and though it's technically a lace weight, in reality it's more of a sort of 3-ply or a heavy lace. I'm really pleased with how this came out. It's massive. It's so big. It's a proper wrap it all the way around you job. It's like a big blanket. I love it. I did something different. I mentioned in the podcast last week about not sure about whether I wanted to do the ruffle, and then somebody, I can't remember who it was. Somebody, I'll put a link into the show notes to say thank you, but somebody mentioned the idea of using the mesh pattern from the Viajante, and I thought that was a great idea. So I did all the stockinette portion until I had 66 grams left, and then I did this. This mesh. See if is that better if I put it up against my white top. You can see it a bit better. There we go. It's just a simple yarn over knit two together pattern, and just carried on doing the increases at the corners. Oh, it's so difficult to show. And then I did a couple of rounds of garter stitch. I actually did 4 rounds of garter stitch, but I did the wrap and turn method, and I'll put a link in the show notes about the video tutorial that I used in order to do that, because it meant I could just carry on just knitting rather than doing 11 billion stitches of purl. So, and then I cast off using Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and even though I use that method, it's when it was blocked out, it's actually quite tight. So if I'd not used that stretchy bind off, I think it would have puckered a bit at the end. But blocking this thing, it's because it's so big and it's kind of elongated but with points at the ends, I had to use 4 of my blocking mats, which is too wide for where I normally put it. I normally sort of stand it up against the banisters and sort of wedge it using various bits and pieces, so the hot air rises up through the stairwell and actually dries it really quickly. So that's my favourite place to block stuff, and I can fit 3 along the bottom and 3 along the top, so it's basically 3 by 2, the blocks, and this was basically 4 by 2. So I had to find somewhere random in the house where I could just wedge this thing, and it was not easy, and it was even harder to sort of take it all down again, and it all just kind of crumbled when I took it off the blocking board. I was like, okay, remember to do a big thing like this in the summer next time so I can block it out on the lawn. Anyway, I am really, really pleased with it. I've seen a couple of people who've done the Nuvem who've said that they ended up with a strange kind of row in the middle of the stocking stitch, and I don't have that, and I'm wondering whether the people who did it used Judy's magic cast on and forgot to knit into the back leg of the stitches on the second needle. And that's the only thing I can think of, because I have not got any line at all in the middle. I've got these bits at the end where the increases are done to form the point, but haven't got anything in the middle. So that's just my tip of what I found. And I really, really love having this mesh on the edge instead of the ruffle. I think it looks much nicer. It's less frilly for me, but it finishes off this huge stocking stitch swath of fabric in something a little bit special. It makes it not a fabric wrap or a machine knitted wrap. I really like it. I know I'm going to get tons and tons and tons of wear out of this. And even if I just wear it as a kind of scarf thing in the winter with my big grey winter coat, it's going to get so much wear. And because it's superwash, I'll probably be able to just whack it in the washing machine if it gets a bit grubby. And it's definitely stronger than the alpaca silk lace from Drops that I used for my other one. So hopefully this will last longer than a couple of years. I think it will, but I'm really very, very happy with that. And that's all I've kind of been working on for the last couple of weeks, simply because I've not been feeling great, and doing stocking stitch in the round takes no effort at all. But I did finally manage to finish off my Into the World Captain Tight Pants yarn, my spinning. And this is, let me see what it is. It's 85% Polworth and 15% silk. And this was done worsted. It's a worsted 2-ply. So let me see if I can. There we go. And I've tried to barber pole it as much as possible, and I think I've succeeded quite well. And it's pretty consistent, I think. And what I've got is a fingering weight, and it's 356 meters, which I'm really pleased about. It's good yardage, good meterage, and the skein weight ended up being 118 grams. So because it was meant to be a 4 to 4.3 ounce braid, I've got 118 grams, which means it's quite a healthy sized skein. And I really love these colours. They're so beautiful. Really, really gorgeous. And I think they make a fantastic shawl. Definitely a shawl or a cowley thing, a cowley shawl, because it's lovely. And I think just a really basic shawl pattern would look lovely in this yarn. And I now know what all the fuss was about with Into the World, because this is the first Into the World skein of yarn that I've spun, that I've made from their fibre, and it's beautifully prepared. The colours are gorgeous. I particularly love these colours, and I can see what all the fuss was about with this particular colourway, because it's beautifully muted. They're strong colours, but they're muted colours. They're not like in your face bright colours. They're beautifully soft and muted but saturated, and I really love that. And yeah, I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. I'm very, very pleased indeed, and kind of quite excited about getting on to knitting that. I don't know how long it'll be before I get round to it, but we'll see how long I hold out. So the other thing I finished this week was some dyeing, which I'm really, really pleased with. I bought a new roasting tin to do dyeing in. I use Wilton's cake decorating gels, which means they're food safe. I use those along with white vinegar, which I just picked up from the corner shop. And the Wilton's food colouring is very, very strong. Unlike most food colourings, which are, you have to put about half a gallon in to get anything halfway not pastel. So I was always very reluctant to try the Kool-Aid and the regular food colouring, because I liked saturated colours, deep colours, strong colours. And then when I heard about somebody dyeing with the Wiltons, I thought I'd give it a go. And I have to say, very strong saturated colours, so I'm really pleased with those. But someone told me, Happy Debs from our group, who dyed one of the prizes for the craft along we just finished, she told me about doing low level immersion dyeing and in the oven. So it's this really big, wide roasting tin, and what you do is you just put a small amount of water in, so it barely covers the fibre or the yarn, what have you. And then once it's in the water and submerged, you very, very gently apply the dye. So the dye is kind of contained by the fibre in the various areas you place it. So you get this really beautiful, like you see kettle dyeing, that sort of thing, but it's more controlled than it all just being bunged in a big pot. And because I'm doing it in the oven on a low temperature, I think I put it at gas mark 2, and I can just pop it in and walk away. Nothing boils, it's a low level, and it's very controlled, and it means I don't have to stand over it and constantly be hoiking it about. It worked brilliantly. So I used 4 different colours that I sort of mixed using my Wiltons. And the first thing I did was some fibre. And I am so pleased with this. Really, really pleased. That's actually quite colour accurate. I'll show you a bit. It's really annoying when the actual camera casts the shadow, isn't it? But yeah, I'm really, really pleased with it. This is 135 grams of superwash merino wool, and it was bought from World of Wool. And their superwash merino is £2.50 for 100 grams. It's really cheap, which means I can practice. And dyeing it makes it so much more fun than just dyeing a uniform colour, or just the natural. But I'm really, really pleased with this, really pleased. So that was the first thing I did. When it didn't exhaust all the colour, simply because I put so much in. I must remember that I don't need to put as much colour in to get, it just won't absorb enough. So there was quite a lot of colour left in the roasting tin, so I decided that I was going to add some yarn. And the yarn that I added is from the Chester Wool Company, and that's mainly a wholesale company, but the same company does, I think it's bluefaced.com. I'll put the link to the sort of the customer one rather than the wholesaler one. But I follow him on Facebook, Andy, who runs these companies, and he put out a link about there being a sale for full part packets of the wholesale packs at wholesale plus 10% price for the individual skeins. And when I saw that, I just snapped their fingers off, because normally for a skein of this yarn, which is their Platinum High Twist, which is 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon, it's about £8 to £9, and I got this for more like £4.50. So I got 6 skeins, and I'm really pleased, and their customer service is excellent, so I'm quite happy to recommend them. So this yarn, which is beautifully soft, by the way, it's really smooth. Actually, I don't know if this is the high twist version. The link's in the show notes anyway. And it's very smooth, very soft, and I just love the kind of the glow it gives to it. So this yarn, because there was already a colour in the dye bath, it was all sort of mixed together when I took out the fibre. I put the yarn in and then just added a few little spots actually directly onto the yarn, and I've got this lovely sort of blue greeny pops of teal colour, and I'm really, really pleased with it. I think it's going to make something really lovely. Really pleased with that. So I think you'll be seeing more hand-dyed yarn in the future. Certainly hand-dyed fibre, because it's a lot cheaper to dye it yourself. The trouble is I don't know how colour fast it'll be, because I've not got that far with any of the stuff that I've dyed yet. So we shall see. We shall see how that goes, and I'll let you know if I find it isn't that colour fast. So really enjoyed that, and I'll talk about that a bit more later on. But that was something that took a good half day, was doing that. But I really enjoyed it. It was fun because I was able to do it in bits. I wasn't constantly standing over it. It was like, well, I could do the soak the yarn and fibre for a bit, and then I mix the colours up, and then I apply the colours, and then I pop it in the oven, and then I take it out of the oven like in an hour and a half's time, and then I let it cool, and then I rinse it off, and that's it. So I can do all of that, but in stages, which means that I don't have to wear myself out doing it, which is good. It's great fun. You feel like an alchemist. It's like painting. It's like painting with baking. It's great fun. Really enjoy it. So what I've got next is Nose to the Grindstone. And the first thing I should talk about is my spinning for the spin along. Please excuse me, these are big bags and they're on the floor. I actually have half of my spin along clunk. I do apologise for all the noise. I've actually finished plying this fibre, but I've not soaked it yet, because what I want to do is, the next thing I've got to do is apply the natural colour. And what I wanted to do was have the unsoaked version to compare it to, because I want it to be as close to each other as possible in order to stripe it. But I'm really pleased with how that's come out. Colour's fantastic. Really beautiful. And that was just, I think I just split it in half and spun it end to end. It was, because the colours were very close to each other, I didn't feel it would matter whether it barber poled or didn't barber pole, and the sections were quite small as well, so it's nicely blended up, all the colours and things. So really pleased with how that's turned out. And that's up next, because I have the two strands, the two singles are wound together to make this plying ball, and then I'll just ply that off this plying ball, which I'll just stick in my bag on the floor and just spin from it. And this spin bin from Fondant Fibre is brilliant. The more I use it, the more I love it, because it's very sturdy, and it's good for certainly having the plying balls knocking around in the bottom, because they slide off the ripstop fabric. So really pleased with those, and it's got room for all the bits and pieces that I'm using, like the spindle and scale and the niddy noddy and the lap spindle bowl, all, and the spinning cloth and all the lap cloth. It's all in there. So, and there's tons of room left as well. So I do recommend those, and I know a few of you have bought them actually since I showed you it the other week. So it's good to know that other people agree with me that they're a great product, because obviously we want Deb to make some more. So if we buy them all frequently, she'll make some more. That's my plan. You have to help me out here so I can buy more in the future. So that was the first thing. I will probably have finished that plying by the next podcast. So it's kind of encouraged me quite a lot that I've 200 grams in no time at all, especially as I've not really done much at all this week on the spinning front. I was really concentrating on the Nuvum because I really wanted to finish that and get using it, because it's the right time of year for that sort of big swoopy shawl, but quite lightweight. It's perfect for sort of slinging around your shoulders to go out to, like if you're going out somewhere in the car and you're just going from the car to the building, it's perfect for that. And it's nice to wear in the car because it's light and you can adjust it to how thick you want it or not, because you can just wrap it round or leave it hanging open. So that's why I wanted to get that done. It's the perfect time of year for that. So that's why I've not done much on anything else really. I did some on the toddler blanket, and I've really not done very much at all since, I'm looking at the wrong end, since the last episode. Where is the penguin? There's the penguin. That's how much I've done from the penguin to the top. But what you got to remember is it's really wide. So it doesn't feel like a lot, but it is quite a bit that I've done. So I'm getting pretty close to reaching the end where I'm going to start applying a border. I really do have to think about how I'm going to do this border next. And because it would be really nice to get that out of the way and have that Christmas present under my belt, so to speak. And that's in my bag from Knit and Stitch Bits in Australia. And I love this bag. It's going to get a lot of wear. And because I finished the Nuvum, I decided to cast on another project. And I'd just like to say how much I love that this project goes in this bag. Look at the colours, isn't that great? Especially when you look at the lining. Look at that, perfect match. And that bag is by Mina Makes, who is the knitting expat. And this is what I've done so far. This is Pebble Beach shawl. Pebble Beach shawl by Helen Stewart of the Curious Handmade podcast. And the yarn is merino silk sock from Black Bunny Fibres. And it's quite hard to show you quite how luscious this is. I think if I show you it on the skein, you get a better idea. It's gorgeous. It's really beautiful. And I got it, I think she had a discount code on because I normally can't afford her stuff. And I do love it. I won a skein of hers a few years ago, and I fell in love with it, and I've sort of kept an eye on it ever since. And then this discount code came up and I just snapped at it, and it's gorgeous. And my sister-in-law thought the same thing when she visited, and she fell in love with it, and I sort of went, okay, you can have it, only because I love you and you produced beautiful niece and nephew. But I'm really pleased how it's going on. The Pebble Beach shawl pattern originally just came in one size, which was small, like a shawlette. And I already made one of those and I wear it all the time. And I really like it. And what we did when Emma was here was she saw this yarn and she really wanted it to be made into a shawlette, because she wears the ones I've made her quite a lot at work because she sits really close to the aircon vent. So I sort of brought all my shawlettes downstairs, and she had a trying on session and she tried on all of them, and she eventually said that this Pebble Beach shawl is the pattern that she feels most comfortable wearing. So Christmas present tick off. So as I was thinking about the Christmas present thing with the toddler blanket that I'd been working on, I thought, don't be selfish. Don't make another shawl for yourself. Make a Christmas present and get it out of the way, and it can be put to one side and everything will work out nicely in December. You won't have a meltdown like I usually do. But I think Emma's going to really love this. And there's no point in me keeping it a secret from her because she's seen the yarn, she chose the pattern. So if she sees the podcast or on social media, because she does follow me on Instagram and Twitter, she can see the progress I'm making. But this, I'd not thought about doing variegated yarn with this pattern before. I tend to avoid doing variegated lace patterns because it kind of hides the lace and it kind of, you feel like, what's the point? But I saw somebody on the project pages, and there were a few people who'd done variegated yarn, and I thought actually that looks really good because it's such a simple lace pattern with the eyelets in the top half. Once it's blocked, you'll see those, and I think it makes it really interesting. It keeps you from getting bored, kind of breaks up the variegation quite nicely. I really like it. So this is the small size, and in the last year Helen's re-released the pattern but with 3 sizes, which are sort of like the shawlette, the shawl and the large shawl, and this is in 4-ply. I think the medium is in light fingering and the large is in fingering, but don't quote me on that. There's a link in the show notes to the pattern page, so if you are interested in doing the larger sizes, have a look. But anyone who bought the original shawl pattern in the 1 size just got a free update. So if you've already got the Pebble Beach shawl and you don't think you've got the 3 shawl sizes, just go and update it in your library and you'll get the updated version, because I do like this pattern, and I'm sort of thinking about maybe doing the Into the World yarn in this pattern because I think that will really look nice. But yeah, I'm enjoying doing that. It's a good fun pattern. It's nice and straightforward. You don't have to think too hard. But it stops you from getting bored. So it's like a next step up from the Nuvum. So I'm going to do something I've not talked about for a while, which is crafting library and the quest for knowledge. And what I wanted to share was a book I've been dipping into, which is Hand Dyeing Yarn and Fleece by Gail Callahan. Now, Gail Callahan is also known as the Kangaroo Dyer. And I first heard about her on the Dyer's Notebook. And if you've not heard of the Dyer's Notebook and you're interested in dyeing at all, it's a very good place to start, because Laura, who hosts the Dyer's Notebook, is Laura of Jinx Yarns, which most of you will have heard of before, mainly because I've shown you a couple of skeins from there. And she dyes beautiful yarn. And her podcast, she very generously talks about her dyeing methods and answers questions from people who want to learn to dye and set up their own dyeing businesses. And she does, in addition to that, she does very interesting interviews with dyers. And I thought that Gail's interview was particularly interesting. I found her very interesting indeed. And I've put a link in the show notes to that interview, so you can look at that if you like. And after watching the interview, I thought I would buy this book, and I'm really glad I did, because it's full of useful information. The other thing that I found out about in that interview was about Gail's colour grid. Now, and that's this. It's a very simple tool to use if you don't get on with colour wheel theory and you just don't get it. This is a very, very simple way of getting around that problem. You have a chart of all these colours, and you take your grid, which has holes in it, and you choose your colour. Let's say I want to choose this green one here. All the sort of smaller colours around the middle are complementary colours, and they will all work really well. And over here you will get this is a contrasting colour, which will give you a pop to make the greens brighter. And you know, you can see as you, it's hard to do this back to front, not back to, well, not looking at it, shall we say. It's okay, let's see, I'll try and get it. I shall get it lined up and then I shall show you it. There we go. So various colours and the contrasts over here. So it's a lot more straightforward to get your head round than a colour wheel if you are not comfortable with a colour wheel. And it's very useful for dyeing, obviously, but also it can be very useful for designing colour work and things like that, choosing your yarns for a striped shawl. It just makes it a bit easier if you don't get on with the colour wheel. And I bought that separate from the book. I actually bought that from Hilltop Cloud, and the link to that's in the show notes. But I think you might be able to get it on Amazon. But I got mine from Hilltop Cloud because I'd rather buy direct from a small business in the UK. So that's one of the things that Gail did, and I got that first before I got the book, because I wasn't really into hand dyeing at that point. I was kind of mentally getting to the idea. And this book, one of the things I really love about it is it's, as well as the content, is it's spiral bound, which means it can sit open flat. And it's got several sections. It's got how you set up your studio or your dyeing space, things like health and safety and how to look after the environment and things like that. How to set up heat sources. Then it's got the kind of fibres that you can dye. Then it's got the kind of dyes that you can try. Then it talks about colour theory. And then it talks about various different techniques you can try in order to dye your yarn or fibre. And there's a good sort of 15 or so. I mean, there's hand painting, dip dyeing, injection of colour, winding round a cone, immersion dyeing, drip paint, immersion combat. I mean, it's got a big range of dyeing techniques you can try. And obviously, I've not really even delved into those yet. And then it's got some patterns at the back, which I didn't actually realise it had the patterns when I bought the book. I was buying it purely for the dyeing techniques. But, you know, some of the patterns are actually kind of cute. There's some simple stitch patterns, and there's a hat pattern. There's a basic lace scarf, ribbed leggings, a neck ruffle, little baby jacket and cap. But the thing that I really like in the patterns is some kangaroo mitts. They're cool, aren't they? So I might do those at some point, because I do like colourwork mitts. They're good fun. They're not too huge. But the book is really well laid out. It's very clear, as you can see. It's everything sort of listed and enumerated. It's got the sort of tips that highlighted. It's got very good pictures of each stage. Let me show the little jacket there, actually. And I think it's a really good book, and I think I'm going to get a lot out of it. In the book, actually, there is a colour grid there, and it's not a full colour grid, it's just, it explains the colour grid a bit better, sort of breaks it all down. And it's got, has it got bits about the colour wheel? I'm not sure. I saw a picture of a colour wheel somewhere. But overall, if you are interested in trying hand dyeing at home, I do recommend this book. It's got some really interesting techniques, and I kind of wish that I felt like I had a space where I could do dyeing that wasn't the kitchen, because I don't really do any of the cooking anymore. I can't really manage it unless it's something you just chop up and stick in the oven or in a big stew pot. That's about all I can manage, because I can't stand over it and cook, which is why I like the oven method, because I don't have to stand over anything. But because I don't do much of the cooking, I can't guarantee that any of the pots and pans and spoons and utensils and things that I use won't get used by my other half, because unless I take them out of the kitchen and sort of wrap them in tape and stick them somewhere hidden, they could get used. But I don't really have a separate space where I can do that, not where I have access to water and things. So this is for the time being, it's only going to be the food colourings. But I think because I've got the saturated colours of the Wiltons, I think I'm going to be quite happy with that for a while. So, you know, we're thinking about moving in a couple of years. In a couple of years, I might be ready to try acid dyes, and I might be able to, you know, put a bid in for a utility room when we move. You know, utility room with, I can put like one of those worktop oven things and sink. I could maybe put in a bid for that. So yeah, it's a good book if you're interested. It's very clear, it's very well written, and I've put a link to the Kangaroo Dyer, which is her yarn dyeing business, in the show notes as well. And if you want to know about what her dyeing techniques look like, you can go and have a look at her yarn. And I've put a link to this book in the show notes, both a UK and a US Amazon link. So if you do want to buy it, if you use those links, I'll get a bit of money towards running the podcast from Amazon, and that helps pay for things like postage. And I was very grateful for bits and pieces like that when I sent out the prizes for the sale, because 2 of the prizes went over to North America. Oops. Never mind. I had the money that I got from the anniversary sale of patterns. That's what that got used for, was the postage. So that was just something I wanted to share with you, because I've been looking at the dyeing quite a lot recently, and I thought I'd share a book with you that I thought was useful. So go and have a look on the show notes, and there are links to things like the Dyer's Notebook, Kangaroo Dyer, the books. I'll even put a link to a playlist on YouTube of some of the videos that I used when I was first starting to try dyeing using the microwave. So that might be useful if you're interested as well. And moving on, Splashed Out. Now, obviously, you know that I've been really enjoying all the spin along and the spinning, and I feel like I've been saying for a while, I've been getting to the point where I felt that I could maybe spin for a sweater. And I've kind of been umming and ahhing about it, and sort of thinking, well, I've got a lot of fibre in my stash. I won't do it yet. Maybe for next Tour de Fleece. And then I got the newsletter from Sarah's Texture Crafts, and in her newsletter, she told us that her fresh from the farm tops, which are tops that she's had spun from fleeces she selected personally from local to her farms, those farm tops were half price. And it was like, I can't resist that. It's a real opportunity to get enough for a sweater. And what I did was I bought 500 grams of some beautiful grey Romney. And it's a sort of, it's more like a grey fawn colour. Let's see if I can, you see it's got sort of hints of brown in it, because it's a natural colour. It's got sort of real dimension to it. And the first fibre I ever spun was Romney, and I really enjoyed it, and I've not spun any since. And I was looking at the information on her website. It was talking about micron counts and staple lengths and everything, and I just thought, at £3.50 for 100 grams of these hand selected tops, I can't really go wrong. Sadly, she only had 500 grams of this Romney left. And to be on the safe side, I would have preferred to get like 600 or 700 grams, so I could make sure I could have a long sleeve sweater. But I really liked this colour, and I really wanted to use this as my sweater. I just really, that was the one I wanted to go for. And it feels lovely. It's really soft and smooth. It's obviously, it's not as soft and smooth as a merino, but it is, you know, it doesn't feel coarse or anything. It's beautifully soft. And Sarah said, you know, because she hand selects the fleeces that get spun up, and she has a relationship with those farms, she knows the quality she's getting, and it shows. It really does show. It's beautiful stuff. So while I was doing that, I decided that it'd be a shame not to get Shetland, because Shetland's one of my favourite fibres to spin. So I got 200 grams of Shetland in this beautiful sort of dark grey, almost chocolate colour. It's beautiful, and it's fabulously soft and bouncy. It's going to be so much fun to spin that. Really lovely. And I couldn't resist the bargain. And in fact, when I went to get the link for the show notes, there was a sign on her website saying that sale's still going on. So if you watch this quite soon after it gets uploaded, you should be able to still get that discount. And that was going to be it for me for buying this week. But one of my favourite indie dyers, one of the first indie dyers I ever bought from, was Baby Longlegs. And she's a Leicestershire dyer, and you've heard me talk about her before because I've knit quite a lot of her stuff. And she stopped dyeing fibres before I started spinning. So I never bought fibre direct from her. I got some in a D-stash and I enjoyed it because I love her colour sense. And she has a similar aesthetic to me. She likes that really dark, deep, saturated colour that I really enjoy. And she started dyeing fibre again. She's not done any for a long time. And I was resisting and resisting and resisting. And then I saw that she had dyed up some Merino Dalle, which is a merino fibre that is grown by sheep in the south of France, where the shepherds still sleep out with their flocks. It's done old school and it's organic. And it's a merino that John Arbon sells. He sells the fibre in two natural shades. It's kind of a light grey and a sort of more chestnut colour. And I've been umming and ahhing about getting some of that, the undyed direct from John Arbon, for quite a while because I really like the natural colours that are in. But for some reason I just never pulled the trigger. I think because I thought I can get some when I feel like I want to do a project in it. It won't take long. And because it's natural, it's not like it's a one-off and I'll miss out. It, you know, they've got their stock for the year, and if it runs out, then I'll have to wait till next year, but it will come back in at some point. And then I saw on Sarah's Facebook page that she had dyed some of this Merino Dalle, and I went and had a look, and I love this colour, which is sort of dark green and teal, and you can see that it's this kind of light grey underneath, which gives it real depth, and it's gorgeous. So I bought both braids. So I've got 200 grams of this, and it feels amazing. It's you know how often you buy merino, especially the superwash, and it kind of feels flat. This I've had it with organic merino before. It's got a kind of sponginess to it. There's still crimp and body to it, and that's what this feels like. And it feels more natural somehow. It feels less messed around with than the superwash merino does. And I'm not saying I don't enjoy spinning merino, because I do, but it's usually for the colour rather than the texture. But the organic merino I've spun before, which I got from Fondant Fibre, loved it. I really loved it because it felt felt closer to nature somehow. Even though it was dyed, it felt close to nature because it just felt like it had got some body to it, some sort of gravitas. So I'm really looking forward to spinning this. I don't know when I'll get around to it. I just know I had to get it because I love Sarah's work, and I was really interested in trying this particular fibre anyway, and the fact that she dyed it in colours that I really like, I caved, I admit it. But she has also got a 15% discount on at the moment. And if you go over to her Etsy store, the Baby Longlegs Etsy store, and there's a link in the show notes, she's actually got 15% discount on if you enter the code, which is spin number 4 your life, and it's all one word, and it's actually at the top of her storefront in Etsy. So remember to put that in because I forgot. Never mind, it was worth it. It's still pretty reasonable when you think about it. So that's it for Splashed Out. See, this is what happens when I only record once. If I record once a week, I don't have mountains to get through. It's good to know. for one horrible moment there, I thought I'd not recorded, I'd not pressed the button. I was like, why is that up? I've gone all red and flushed now because I was panicked that I'd wasted all this time talking to you. Should know better to second guess myself. Never mind. I just wanted to mention in the online community before I go about Periscope. I don't know if any of you have tried it yet. It's done by the same company as has Twitter, and it's quite easy to sign up for Periscope if you've got a Twitter account. So I did it because a few people have mentioned it, and I just thought I'll go and see what people are talking about. And I'm finding it quite interesting. There seems to be quite an active crafting community on Periscope, and I think it suits crafting quite well because you can do sort of live video streaming of techniques or what I'm working on, or this is my finished object. So instead of having the still images that you get on most social media, it's actually a really good way of doing a live chat with your audience. And it also, because the people watching it, they get notified when you decide you're going to do a live broadcast. So it pops up as a notification, and you sort of tap on it and it opens it up, and you go directly into the broadcast. And there's a chat window at the bottom, so you can put in questions that you have or comments as the broadcaster goes through. So it's a lot more interactive than a podcast because it's done live. And what I've seen so far I've quite enjoyed. I just don't know if I'll ever use it to record myself. I don't think I will. I think because it takes me so long to set up the camera and everything. I don't know. Let me know what you think about Periscope and whether you'd watch it or not. The broadcast can be watched sort of later if you miss the live broadcast. You can watch it up to 24 hours and then it's gone, unless you, I think you can save it and put it on YouTube. So there is that if you want to save it. I don't know. I want to know what you think, whether other people have used it, whether they enjoy using it, whether they watch it, or they think they'll actually use it to record stuff. I don't know. Let me know. My Periscope username is the same as my Twitter username, which is Stitched Tog, all one word, lowercase. So the links over on my show notes and on my webpage and all the rest of it. So it's been lovely chatting to you. As always, let me know if you've got any comments about this episode or anything else over on the Ravelry group, or even in the comments section of this page on the show notes, or even in the YouTube section. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Any feedback is always gratefully received. And I hope the lighting hasn't been too weird. It's sunny now, even though I've got my overhead lights on. I think it's still a bit strange, the lighting. Never mind. These are the things we have to live with if we live in a country which has a lot of dull weather. So we'll see how it looks when I play it back. But it's been lovely chatting to you, and I hope you're all doing okay and enjoying your crafting, and hopefully I will see you again soon. Bye.